everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Coco. Um, we skipped a week, but I was on vacation, and like I said, sometimes one of us has something to do, and it's not a really big problem if we skip a week. So let's of course begin with what we always start with, and that is, Cody, did you play anything special in the last, I guess, 1.5, 2 weeks?
Nothing much besides Blade and Soul and Arma 3, and a little bit of War Thunder here and there, but not a lot.
All right, so your main play was Blade and Soul.
Yep.
All right, so now we are a lot more hours in. What are your thoughts on the game? Did it change from? The first time that we talked about it on the podcast, we only played for about 3 to 4 hours, and now you were a little bit ahead of us. So I guess that you were about like 15 to maybe 17 hours in.
Yeah. Just hit level 30. I'm about to hit 31, so I'm pretty ahead of you guys now.
What are your thoughts of it?
Like it, love it. I have no issues with it so far.
All right, so not too grindy.
Yeah.
Story-wise, of course, we don't know
Not
what the
yet.
fuck's going on.
Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe after level 36, because that was their first cap, and they raised it to 45 is the highest level, so I don't know. So far, 30 is not that much of a grind just yet, so I won't, I won't know until I get higher levels and see.
Alright, sweet. Of course, because also last week we didn't have a podcast, we didn't talk actually about the video that went up on your channel, I believe, which was the Il-2 Battle over Stalingrad review. The first one was out.
Yep, got a few feedback on it, not a lot. That was the first review. Eventually I'll start working on more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll do something with Blade and Soul, like how-to videos.
Yeah, that should be cool. I mean, you said you were doing early access reviews. I know that you also play this racing game sometimes. Is that early access?
Oh yeah, so of course no, actually it came out.
Oh, it
Already,
came out. It
so
was
I can't
released. All right.
review. And games like that you can't really do reviews on, just because. I mean, you could if you wanted to, if on its core mechanics. But Assetto Corsa is one of those games that's mainly, user content. Like it promotes like game creation, or not game creation, but content creation, like new vehicles and tracks. So it's kind of hard to a lot of review for that, because I don't know, it's open sourced, I guess you could say.
How does that work? Because I thought that it was like realistic and everything, but apparently everybody makes their own cars and tracks, or what?
They have a pre-made tracks and cars already from their development, but it's only a few. So like, the game by itself isn't much. It doesn't have a whole lot of content in it. I'll just say that. They're gonna add more, but I think they should have maybe waited a little bit. Because since how it's actually released now and it's gone out of early access.
Alright, so basically the content in itself is kind of lackluster, but the fact that there's custom content available makes it worth it.
Yeah.
Alright. It's kind of interesting to make that setup with like a racing game, and especially to I only saw the thumbnail of the game, but what seemed to me like they go for a realistic route. We had Mod Nation Racers for the PS3 a long while back, which was of course not a racing game, where it was heavily on the content creation, but that was definitely like a cartoony vibe, and I didn't get that from the picture that I saw.
Assetto Corsa is pretty realistic when it comes to some physics, but there's a lot of games out there that are a little more realistic than it.
All right. So is the custom content that people create, is it also very serious, very realistic, or are there completely random bullshit things as well?
There's a few things are like, what the fuck, but for the model making, it uses their the Assetto Corsa's physics engine.
Mm-hmm.
But you're just I guess you can say you're making skins of custom sounds, basically.
All right.
So yeah, it's pretty open in terms of that.
All right, seems
I
interesting.
mean, the game hasn't been out for that long, so there isn't a whole lot of content just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Within the next few months, we'll see more and more stuff coming.
Is the community pretty active? The modding community for that?
Yeah, there's like a lot of projects are in process, like under threads and stuff. Sometimes I'll look on there and see what's going on,
Uh huh.
but it's kind of slow when it terms of like releasing models and stuff
Mm.
because people were working on the models when it was early access, and when the game came out, they changed some stuff for modding. So now people have to start not over again, but like for instance for sounds and some physics, they have to restart with using those.
All right.
Not entirely from scratch, but like they changed a few things, so they have to be aware of it now.
All right. Well, it's interesting. I see you playing it a lot on and off. So, um,
Yeah, I do it to pass the time if
yeah. All
I'm
right.
waiting for someone or doing something.
Yeah, I have those kind of games as well, where if I'm waiting or when I'm not doing anything, I just have that playing on the background while listening to somebody else's podcast or something. So yeah, I feel you there. All right. So pretty much Blade and Soul for you. So I of course also did play that, but I did play two new games in the meantime. One of them is The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which I also already completed. It is not a very long game. It is indeed. People say it's about 4 hours to complete, and I would say that is actually very accurate. Um, in the past, people have said for other games that it's like 70 hours or 20 hours or whatever, and it's completely off. But this one is spot on, and it is really cool. So the game, first of all, it looks gorgeous. It's on the Unreal Engine, which it's actually pretty impressive that it creates images that are still this beautiful. It was also announced to be on the PS4, so it's actually going to be a next gen title, and it surprises me that it can be a next gen um, title with the Unreal 3 engine, because Unreal 4, of course, hasn't been released yet. But that with an old engine like that, you can create games this beautiful. And in the game, you are a detective, a paranormal detective, that gets a letter from Ethan Carter saying that people have gone missing, there have been these murders, and you come to this old village in the woods to investigate it. And at the beginning of the start, you get these letters like, "This is a narrative game that doesn't hold your hand." And that might sound very weird, but what it means is that basically, uh, you can go anywhere you want. Of course, there are a lot invisible walls, but there are a lot of open areas as well. But basically, there are several murders that are going on, and you need to, for example, to find hints to complete them. But the game actually allows you to go further into the story and into the game without actually completing any of those or finding any hints. Now, they made it out to seem that you could actually complete the game without doing any of that, so that it was completely open. I found that is actually not true. There will come a point where you do realize that, oh, now the game actually wants me to return and actually solve these crimes. That was the kind of thing where I was, oh, okay, now I actually feel kind of limited again in the narrative sense. But it's very cool. It reminded me a lot of the old Myst games that also looked very pretty. There's no contact with other humans in the game, so you feel really lonely. And though it's not really labeled as a horror game, it is actually very scary, and more so than scary, it's very creepy. When you're in this burning house, like wooden floors creak and wind howls, and I really got goosebumps a lot of times, and actually call it a perfect like horror game for people who, I don't know, kind of want to play something like this during Halloween, but are too scared to play the big famous horror games out there like Outlast. Um, the Fatal Frame, that sort of stuff. And I think it's ideal for this. There's one section that is actually literally a horror game like that, in the perfect sense. Though I will not spoil exactly what it is. Um, but Yeah, no, it's I mean it's gorgeous, and for people who love single player story driven games, I think it's an absolute must. It's not too expensive. It's $20, and I would definitely recommend it. You can go through it in a day, and have a pretty unique experience. That is. I mean, I kind of like these sort of like detective type games. There aren't a lot of them. Cody, did you ever play L.A. Noire?
Yeah, I played it for a little bit. I
What did you think of that?
never beat it, but I got pretty far. I liked it.
I liked it too. I mean,
I never,
yeah.
I never beat it just because back when I had my older computer, I always had issues of space. So
All right.
since I didn't play it for a while, I ended up deleting it.
Yeah. I actually had a very unique way of playing that game where actually my mother, who's not interested in video games at all, she does like those like who done it shows, um, murder mystery series. So I told her about the game, and I told her how each murder is set up in like an episode that you can complete in an hour. So what I did, the game came out in the summer, is I actually played it with my mother sitting next to me for every episode, and we would do one episode per day, and she would be like, "Oh no, this girl's lying," or "No, he's the murderer," and stuff like that. It was very cool, and I realized that I really like those sort of like detective games, but there aren't a whole lot of out there. There are a lot of like point and clicks out there that have that, but I want a game where I can actually move around in real time. Some people actually recommended Murder Soul Suspect. I actually heard that that game has some problems. That's actually quite shitty in some aspects. Somebody else actually recommended the Sherlock Holmes games, which I know indeed are in real time, so that would be cool. So after this, I might indeed check out on that. But definitely, Ethan Carter was very cool, very unique. Not a whole lot of replay value though. I'm probably never gonna play it again once you beat it once. But the other game that I played, of course, it's Halloween, and that is also kind of what I want to talk about today. Is a horror game called Craven Manor. Craven Manor originally a year ago was released for free. It was a student project, again made on the Unreal Engine, and it is a game where you are in this mansion, and basically you need to collect pieces of a puzzle each time, and there is this mannequin in the house that has the mechanic that we all know from the Doctor Who series, where if the mannequin is right in front of you and you have eye contact with it, it will not move. But once that eye contact is broken and you look the other way, it will move out of its own and try to kill you. Um, this, of course, it gets complicated because you have to solve puzzles where you need to like click on switch or pull on switches or levers, and so you need to walk backwards to keep that eye contact with it. You have a flashlight that's pretty wonky, so sometimes that randomly goes out. When it goes out, you just shit a brick, because then the mannequin has free range to move around. Um, and yeah, no, it was very scary. It was upgraded from the free version. I actually didn't see the whole free version back when it was released. There is actually some new content in there, some new rooms that you need to go through. So that is actually very cool. Graphically, it is improved. Sound-wise, it's improved as well. It's not expensive. It's about $10, and you can complete it in an hour. It would not be a horror game that I would necessarily recommend when people play, or that people play in on a, I don't know, a regular day, I guess. But indeed, when it comes around Halloween, you can see a lot of horror games released on Steam, and some of them are those indie horror games that are, to be honest, absolute shite. They're just cheap rip-offs to I don't know, leech off of the fact that it's Halloween and that people actually want to play a horror game. Um, Story-wise, not too much going on. There is a lot of stuff that you can collect, or not necessarily collect, but look at. So a lot of books, a lot of photographs that describe the background story a little bit. But it's not like Amnesia, where you have whole books and notes that actually explain what is going on. So Definitely for people who want a really story-driven horror game, this would not be it. But it's definitely a lot better than all those slender clones that you have nowadays. Um, Maybe my only critique is that I really dislike dolls. Like, dolls are really scary, and the mannequin itself isn't scary enough. The fact, of course, that it moves while you're not looking does make it scary, but I still have to see a horror game where they actually use dolls that really, really freak me out. And before we actually going to talk about horror games in general, I just want to talk a little bit more about The Evil Within. Last podcast, we have of course talked a little bit about it. It was just released, and I was very surprised to see that the reviews that I saw were all like nines and tens, and people were just praising the game, and I was very surprised because what I saw of it until now really didn't blow me away. But a few days after that, I started checking out some other reviews, and people actually gave it like a 5, a 6, very mediocre reviews. And actually, ironically, that actually got me really excited for the game because now we have this one camp that praises the game and gives it nines and tens, and then we have this other camp that gives it like 5, 6, and fours. And I wonder if I will choose one of those camps or if I'm in the middle, because sometimes I've had in the past where people would really praise a game and I would play it and I would kind of be underwhelmed by it. I wouldn't really um, be on the same page with those guys. A good example of that is a game called Valiant Hearts, a game that was released this year, Ubisoft, where it's a World War One game, and people were praising it and were giving it such just high praise all over the place. And I played and I kind of was underwhelmed, and I mainly due to the fact that the game wanted to be really realistic, yet it had really cartoony characters in that it had a bad guy that just came straight out of a comic with his like bad temper, jumping around like a maniac. That was really my problem, and it really took away from that experience. And just the gameplay was kind of bland. Too much puzzling that got repetitive. I think a game like Limbo is my absolute perfect 2D puzzler and platformer, though Valiant Hearts is definitely not a platformer. But okay, so yeah, that was my thing that I wanted to say on the Evil Within. You're not interested in the Evil Within at all, are you?
No, not really.
Yeah, no, but yeah. So ironically enough, that whole those two sides actually got me really excited, and I've been so busy as of late with of course going on vacation last week, but also anniversary special, Halloween special, all these 1 hour specials that I need to record, and they take so much time to render and upload. So I didn't really bother buying any new stuff, but I'm definitely gonna buy that pretty soon and play it. Um, but another game that was released yesterday is a game called Lords of the Fallen. Do you know what this is?
Nope.
So Lords of the Fallen, and it kind of surprises me that it took this long, is the first. I want to say it nicer, but I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's the first Dark Souls clone out there, and it's made by Europeans. So we got now the Japanese version, we got the European version. Hopefully, in the future, we'll get the American version. Um, but basically, it is an RPG. It is single player only, no online. So you won't actually be able to do like you in Dark Souls, where you actually play co-op by invading each or by joining into each other's world, facing the bosses together, or actually invading each other and killing other players like that. But what it does is you're in this world and you have a lot of bosses that are towering, that are just huge. You need a lot of dodging going on. Um, I think they indeed said that it's pretty hard, but the game does explain you a lot more than Dark Souls does. A lot of people actually really like Dark Souls for not explaining much. I have to admit, like, I mean, Dark Souls is one of my favorite games. It's one in my top 10 favorite games of all time. But I do say that the game does get away with shit that other games definitely would not. Like, Dark Souls fans are really weird, as in that they say that, oh no, that's just a mechanic for Dark Souls, even though it might really be considered. Um, like a cheating thing or a cheap thing to do, which definitely in other games would be berated by. Um, but like I said, this version of Lords of the Fallen is actually not as difficult as Dark Souls, but it's definitely it won't be a breeze. And the game looks absolutely gorgeous. And like I said, I really love Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2 is great. It's might be my favorite game of this year so far, but it's not as great as the first one because the director of Dark Souls and Demon Souls is actually not on Dark Souls 2. He's of course busy with Bloodborne, so it kind of lacked the finesse and the really cool bosses that Dark Souls had. A lot of the bosses in Dark Souls 2 were absolute just clones from Dark Souls 1, which was a shame. Um, but I really am digging a Dark Souls experience, but by a whole new team and giving their own twist to it. So definitely going to check that out. I don't know exactly when. Like I said, I might actually do the Evil Within first and then Lord of the Fallen. I don't know. Actually, I'm gonna check a little bit of the reviews out first, and then I'll decide.
Mhm.
Have you actually played Dark Souls at all?
I played the first one. I never considered myself a hardcore player, but when I first played, I ended up like getting a bad taste for it because the first place I went to was the catacombs, and which
Oh,
was the wrong.
I feel
Really.
you. Yeah.
Never beat it, and then I was kind of wanted to get the second one, but I don't know, just never. I'd
Hmm.
rather spend my money on other games.
Yes. So what for the people what Cody's talking about the catacombs? So in Dark Souls 1, you get to a place when the game first becomes a really open world, and you can basically go two ways, so A and B. And though the game lets you go to both A and B, really what you need to go is to go to A, which is upstairs. But Cody went to B, which is actually a thing that a lot of people do. I actually first went to A, but I only went halfway there, and then I went to B as well, so I had the same problem. And B really is way too overpowering for people at that stage. They have enemies that will respawn um, after like a few seconds. Incredibly tough bosses, really dark places with like gaps you fall through, and just at actually a certain point there will be an orange wall, and you actually literally cannot continue until you go the other way. So I definitely can see why you had a bad taste for that. Um, yeah, because you probably died over and over again there, didn't you?
I got as far as the third. I don't know what you call them, but they're like the skeleton mages. They
Yeah.
have the lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
Got to the third one of him, and then I noticed that my enemies I killed came back to life.
Yep.
So I was like, nope.
Yeah. There's a boss there too. It's actually one of the easiest bosses there, but at that stage he might actually be pretty difficult as well. Pinwheel. Um, yeah, no, definitely catacombs. A lot of people do make that mistake. But alright, so that was the talk about Lords of the Fallen. Let's get back onto horror games. It's of course Halloween, so I wanted to make this sort of a horror special. Hopefully, also going to have a lot of horror footage in the background, if I remember. But anyway,
Mm.
so yeah, let's talk horror games. I myself am a big horror game fan. I'm very strict though. I always say that. How about you? Did you play a lot of horror games in your life? We talked, of course, about Dread Out, but talk a little bit more. Is there other horror games that you've played?
Um, no, not really, to be honest.
Also, not in the past, like a Silent Hill 2, a Resident Evil.
Maybe I put a lot of time in Silent Hill 3
Ah, all right.
with a friend of mine. That
Mm-hmm.
was about it.
How was that? Did you find it scary
Not really.
because you were playing with a friend?
Yeah, no. I just don't think some of the stuff was scary at all. It was actually kind of funny at some point.
All right. Have you because I know you played Dread Out, and Dread Out you really found scary, right?
There was at one point that got me, but I never got that far in the game, and I heard it was just kind of meh anyways.
Oh yeah.
So I never put a lot of time into it.
So of course, the one game that everybody compares Dread out to is, of course, the Fatal Frame series, which is the
That's what I.
game where,
Yeah, that's what I was hoping you
yep,
like.
where you're a Japanese schoolgirl, and you have this photo camera, the camera Obscura, and basically you are in this ghost house, and there are these Japanese ghosts, in the style of The Grudge and The Ring, uh, white women with long black hair, but also fucked up shit like children. Um, I don't know, ghosts with like broken backs that actually walk on their hands and shit. Um, it's really freaky shit. Um, and a lot of people regard that as one of the scariest experiences there is. I actually checked out the Fatal Frame 1. That game is so dated that some of the ghosts still look really scary because they also move very sudden and spastically, but graphically that game sure is outdated. I remember that I imported the Fatal Frame 4, which is called Project Zero in Japan. I actually um, ordered it out of Japan because I had a freeloader or whatever you would call it for my Wii back in Holland, and I played the Japanese version of that because it was never released in the US for whatever reason. And that had a cool mechanic where there were these phones throughout the ghost house, and when you pick them up, the ghost would actually talk through the microphone in your Wii controller. So they would say shit
Oh,
like
that's
"I
weird.
can see you" and stuff, and it was really scary. And I never actually completed one of those games. I should actually do a let's play of them on my channel, but like they're very freaky. Usually the build up is very good. The first few ghosts that you see are actually not very scary. They're just, I don't know, white people with black hair. But like I said, some really fucked up shit's happening with broken backs or people with their necks all twisted and weird because they got hanged and stuff. Speed, of course, also changes where the ghosts are first very slow. After that, they're very fast and sudden. So that's definitely a scary thing. But would you consider ever playing that, or is that your weakness? Would
Oh,
you not?
oh yeah, oh definitely.
Okay.
Um, I would kind of hope that it would be localized because my Japanese isn't that good for reading, but yeah, I'd rather have it localized.
Yeah, I think overall the Fatal Frame that is considered the best is the second one, is the Crimson Butterflies one. I actually never played
Yep.
that. I uh
Yeah,
I,
I
I
heard that one was the best as well, but it's never.
yeah,
Yeah, I never played.
I think there's
I
even
remember.
yeah three. Of course, there's four, so there must be a three. I think I've never heard something about three, so three is probably a little disappointing. I don't know. What did you hear about two? You were going to say something about two?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was saying that I heard two was one of the best ones.
I mean, everybody's always talking about like wait until you know what the butterflies mean. I never figured it out, but yeah, I might definitely play that on my channel once, since of course with emulators and stuff you can do that pretty easy now. I know that there is a Grudge game for the Wii as well, but I saw actually some of that on PewDiePie's channel, and to be honest, it looked kind of shitty. Sure, there are some jump scares that might be effective, but a lot of those were very much scripted in that it happened during cutscenes. So where in some games you actually just look around and jump scares happen when you cross a certain point, these jump scares happened while the camera was moving on its own, and I think that is just not as effective. So I don't really like that. Now the first horror game that I ever played, what I would consider, it was actually the first Resident Evil, but it was the remake for the GameCube, and that was actually very scary to me. I did play it with a guide back at the time, but I was like 11 or 12, and just, oh my god, it was my first scary experience, and I remember that I actually wanted to be scared. Back when I was a kid, I only wanted to play colorful games, Mario games, Pokemon. I didn't want to play any like grown-up games. Some of my friends were like, "Oh yeah, no, I want to play Duke Nukem or I want to play Turok," and I didn't like. I was like, "No, I want to play Yoshi's Island and Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Snap. Fuck off." But then at a certain point, I wanted that adult experience as well, and the first one that I had that with was, well, I guess in a way in the N64 in a way was with Conker's Bad Fur Day, but that aside was with what's it called? Yeah, Resident Evil. And that scared the shit out of me. But what's really effective about that, and the Fatal Frame series actually has that too, is that you cannot control the camera. So the camera is static, and you just walk through, I don't know, this JPEG image in the background. And at the time, it's actually very effective because they can set the camera up in ways where a zombie could suddenly jump out at you, and you wouldn't even see it, because the camera is positioned in a way where um, they're behind a blind corner, or behind an obstacle where you could actually not see behind. And just the fact that the graphics at the time looked absolutely gorgeous. Mainly also because you couldn't control the camera, so there wasn't a whole lot of processing power going through that. Just made it absolutely horrifying. Let's see, other horror games that I played, of course, Fear. Have you played Fear?
I played a little bit of the first one.
All right, so first one, I think it has some very effective jump scares, but at one point I did realize that every time Alma, which is of course the name of the girl, showed up, that I wouldn't die. There's one point all the way up to the end where where she appears, you can actually die. But I realized that every time she appeared, I was safe, and that kind of took away from the scare. However, the one jump scare that got me, and no, it was not the one where you actually would go down the stairs. That was unfortunately already spoiled to me. But the one that really got me is you go through this how to say, air duct, or air vent, and you hear her whisper, "Over here," and she comes crawling at really high speed towards you and then disappears. And it scared the shit out of me. And ever since, and it's also because of the first Half-Life, I just hate air vents. Like, they are so scary. And I like how a lot of horror games nowadays don't really do anything with them, even though you think it's very cheap. And it really has a suspense where you're crawling through these air ducts and you think, oh shit, something's gonna jump out at me, but then nothing happens. That's kind of cool. Like, horror when nothing's happening, I think is really cool. And let's see, what is else on my agenda? So weirdly enough, you would think, okay, what is my favorite horror game of all time? It's not necessarily favorite, but I think it might be the best one that I had. It is actually Slender. It sounds weird, but I remembered,
Really?
yeah, I remembered when I played it that I was so scared that it would pop up, and it was the first time where I experienced a horror game that was not scripted. So
Hmm.
the Slender, would appear, of course, when you would collect more pages, it would appear more frequently. But just the fact that I could look behind me and that there was a possibility that he was there freaked me out to the extent that I haven't experienced before. All the horror games that I played before that, were so scripted that the monster would only appear at a certain point. So even though you could look around you, or look behind you, if the game didn't want you to be attacked by a monster, it wouldn't happen. With Slender, there was always that threat. And I remember that a Dutch friend who came visit me here, stayed at my place for a few days. He played it, and where the Slender Man would actually appear quite early in my game, he didn't appear a single time until I think he got like 4 pages. And it freaked me out to no point where I realized that there was indeed no scripting involved, only the fact that he will be more aggressive the more pages you got. But the fact that you could not pinpoint when or where he would appear just freaked me out, and I never experienced that before. Of course, if I go back now, it's not that scary. That's the thing with all horror games. If you play through Fatal Frame once and go back, you know what's gonna come, so it's not that scary. Maybe a sound might creep you out still, but really, it's not the same experience as if you play a horror game for the very first time. You don't know what's going on. Um, but yeah, no, Slender, really, really great job. I haven't actually played any other Slender since. I haven't played any of the clones, like I said. I really don't like that. But the very original, I think, was absolutely fantastic. Um, and yeah, what was the best? I mean, you see that now too with Alien, right? Alien Isolation, where the AI is not scripted and the alien does
Yeah.
what it does. I mean, the fact that I already experienced that with Slender might be the reason why I'm not that scared. If Alien came out before Slender and introduced that, that game might have blown me away, and it's insane. But I know this now, and I guess we're going to see this in a lot more horror games in the future. Last horror game that I want to talk about is Outlast, of course, because Outlast has the same mechanics in Alien, where you of course hide in closets, hide under beds, but definitely the the paths that the enemies take there are a lot more scripted, so a lot more paced out to let you actually escape. I've had multiple times in Alien Isolation where I would hide in a closet and the alien would leave, and I got out of the closet, and the alien would just decide to come back in that same room. So whoop, I go back in the closet. The alien leaves. I go back out of the closet. Oh, alien is like, nope, I'm going in the room again for a third time because I don't know, I forgot my keys or something. So I go back into the fucking closet, and um, in that way, Outlast is definitely a little bit more forgiving. Though I realize that Outlast is also more about the chase. There are several sections where the horror is kind of being chased by all these enemies, and you kind of need to quickly figure out where to go. Whereas Alien really is all about, oh, don't get caught, because if the alien spots you, you're dead. Like, he kills you in one hit. Did you ever play Outlast or check anything out on YouTube?
No.
Right. I actually like it. I actually, ironically, and it's pretty rare. I think that the expansion might be a little bit better than the original one, though the original one definitely I like as well. I checked a lot of videos of that too on YouTube, and I think it's again an Unreal game. So that engine is just, you see it everywhere. But it has some of the most effective jump scares out there. And definitely because it was released next to Amnesia: Machine of Pigs, was just absolute garbage. Really made Outlast stand out, and yeah, no, I'm really actually hoping for a sequel to that. I mean, Outlast was a huge success, so I have no doubt they're gonna make a part two. And for part two, if I would have some critique on the original one, but that was already fixed in the expansion, but was that there was too much repetition with the puzzles where you had to collect three items of a certain thing, or you needed to turn three valves or two valves, and you already knew, oh, now an enemy is going to show up, and usually it was actually the same enemy over and over again, which really lost its scare a lot. But I've no doubt that if they make a sequel, that it will be absolutely terrifying. Actually, one last thing that I quickly want to talk is Five Nights at Freddy's. That game actually has been requested.
Oh yeah, the second one. Heard
Yep.
it's coming out on Steam. There's a trailer for it already, really.
Yep. Five Nights at Freddy's actually have been requested a lot on my channel. And I gotta admit that I'm not going to do it mainly because I've seen so much footage of it already on YouTube that it won't scare me. Like, I've seen all the enemies, I've seen what they do, and yeah, it doesn't scare me. So I don't know if I'm actually going to play part two. I mean, let's be real. The only reason why they make part two is because part one is such a success that they quickly want to cash out on that. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna have all these YouTubers that say, "Oh no, that Five Nights at Freddy's, that's that game that was so successful on everybody's channel. I didn't get it on my channel, so oh, now I have a chance, right? And like Five Nights at Freddy's 2, yeah, everybody's gonna play it." And probably what's gonna happen is everyone's gonna play it, and it's like, well, more the same. And it was kind of, everybody was like, oh, Five Nights at Freddy's when it was first released, but now that it's part two, everybody kind of knows the deal. Unless they really do something new. Yeah, I don't know. I might play it if word of mouth is really good. But if I do, I don't want to watch any footage. So
Yeah.
I should go into that game completely blind, and then I think I could do a successful playthrough of it. Alright, so that was it for horror. News-wise, we have two things. We have a small thing and a big thing. I guess, should we start with the small thing, with your news we were talking
Oh
about?
yeah. Sure, why not? Valkyrie Chronicles. There we go. It's been announced by Sega for the PC, but they haven't announced where it's going to be available. I'm assuming it's going to be on Steam because there is a lot of Sega games on there, so...
Yeah, they should have no reason to not have it on there. So that's very
Yeah.
cool. So for the people who don't know, Valkyria Chronicles is a turn-based tactical game for the PS3 originally, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is very anime. So if you are if you don't like anime that much, I actually don't like to watch anime anymore that much, but I still like anime style, so I have no problems with that. Um, but basically, it is a different take on the French-Prussian War. And what's really funny is that it just completely overhauls the map of Europe, and it actually uses a lot of names for cities that are from Holland. Um, and it's just really funny to see that. And story wise, it's kind of cheesy. Voice acting is also cheesy. Um, but I've actually had people that didn't like that cheesy anime shit or cheesy voice acting. They would normally be completely turned off by that, and we're like, well, I'm not gonna bother with this. Absolutely loving this game purely for its gameplay mechanics because it's so solid. Um, I mean, it's like a chess match, or you can compare it to Advance Wars, where each team takes its own turns, but you can actually move in real time all the units. So you have, of course, these different unit types. Like you have a regular soldier, you have an engineer, you have a sniper, um, or you have a scout, and the scout can move for a longer time. So when you start moving, this timer goes down, and when the timer is down, you actually cannot move. So if you fuck up, and for example you move a little bit too far, and enemies can see you, and the timer goes off or goes down all the way, you're stuck there. You could still do an action, like is pretty well known with tactical games, where you, for example, can take cover or you can take one shot. And all of that, taking the shot, is also where you actually need to aim in real time and everything. And it's just really cool. All these new gameplay mechanics, these tiny changes get introduced in each battle, where you have a tank on your side, or you now have actually mines that you need to worry about. And it really goes deep, where you can actually also upgrade a lot of your unit troops. And what's really cool is that it has that aspect of, for example, in XCOM, where you actually recruit units from a camp, and each of the unit has like their own personality and name and background. And if they die and your medic cannot heal them on time, they're gone forever. So I love that aspect because you get really attached to these soldiers, right? When it's like level up to I don't know, level 10 or something, he's like a fucking badass. And if you make the wrong mistake and this enemy tank comes around the corner and shoots him, you're like, no, I lost one of my most precious units. But I'm the kind of guy that's like, well, we gotta keep on playing. We gotta for our fallen brother. That's how I play. And ironically, I actually never completed it, because that is one thing though. Some of those turn-based battles can take up really long time, like 40 minutes. And after playing it for 40 minutes, you kind of want to take a break, since the next battle will again be that long. But it's actually been pretty successful, and ironically, after that PS3 version, there have actually been a Valkyria Chronicles 2 and 3, which was only released on the PSP and I think PS Vita. But yeah, no, I really liked it, and
I don't think they were ever released for the PS Vita. Maybe in Japan, but actually no. I haven't even seen a copy of that for the Vita, so I'm not sure.
all right. And I know for a fact that 2 is on PSP, but I think there's a 3 as well. But it's probably wasn't then released in the US. Don't know why. Maybe it actually
Yeah.
wasn't so successful. Like I said, I think that the anime sauce that is thrown in there really scares off a lot of players out there. But like I said, if you like tactical gameplay, check it out. It is so worth it. It is really cool. That same Dutch guy who was here playing Slender, we actually played a little bit of it, and we divided the troops. So he got a few troops that he would move, I got a few troops that I would move, and so we kind of cared about our own own troops, and it was really cool. I mean, there's just a lot in there, like XCOM. Like, if you're a sniper, you can get into watchtowers to get a better view. You can hide behind sandbags or create cover, or like barricades. There's just so much in it, and that's the type of like tactical gameplay that I love. Um, but yeah, no, definitely recommendation when it comes out to PC, guys. Definitely one to look forward to. All right, so let's talk about the main news that I wanted to talk about, and a lot of people have been talking about this, and this is about the game Paranautical, if I said it right, Activity. Of course, a joke on Paranormal Activity. Um, but not necessarily about the game itself, but about the whole scandal that surrounded the threatening of Gabe
Uh,
Newell on
uh,
Twitter. So, Paranautical Activity was a game that a lot of people apparently were looking forward to. I actually don't know what type of game it is, but it
it looks
doesn't.
like I don't know. I don't think it was horror, but it was like Minecraft kind of like
It,
how that
is it
retro.
is it all in like squares?
Yeah,
All right, and it's like a horror based one, I guess.
something like that.
See, the fun thing is that it doesn't really matter all that much because the game is no longer available on Steam.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so let's get into that. So the game was, as I realized, was in early access for a while, but then finally was released fully, and it would be presented on the front page of the Steam website, which is of course a big thing for games, right? That's where most people will see your game, and you will get, of course, the most sales out of that. But apparently there was some mistake made, or servers were a bit slow. But the Paranautical Activity showed up as still early access.
But it was on the front page.
Yeah, it was on the front page, but it said that it was available in early access. And I actually got some of the tweets that I actually don't know what position he was in. Well, he was the developer. I guess he was the main guy of the studio Code Avarice, and his name is Mike, not Murder. Mike, what the fuck is his name? Mike Malbeck is his name. And when he saw that the early access was stated under his game, he said, "Are you?" And this is literally his tweet. "Are you fucking kidding me, Steam? We just released out of early access, and this is our front page banner." Then he gets just a lot of other shit, like fucking Steam is just fucking taking money out of my pocket, misinforming people that my game is in fucking early access. I'm so fucking done dealing with fucking incompetent shits, blah blah blah. Just like, I mean, he's mad. Okay? And then he tweets, "I am going to kill Gabe Newell. He is going to die." Now that tweet was deleted afterwards. But it's the internet, right? If you put something on there, it's there forever. And so, even though that I realized that jokingly, we say a lot of stuff. I mean, I mean, the other day, we saw somebody in our school watch My Little Pony, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, let's kill the bitch. That's all joking, or maybe not on your side though. Maybe Cody was already sharpening the knives. But what I'm saying is that when it's just friends among each other, you can easily joke about that. And I have my how you say my dislikes of certain companies, like let's say Gearbox. I don't like Gearbox that much. Um, I don't like EA that much.
I don't think anyone really likes CA that much anymore.
Yeah, true that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not stupid enough, or I'm not that stupid where I go and on Twitter say, "Oh yeah, hey, I wish these people would die," right? That is just something that you don't do, even if you are that mad, because I mean, I know that this guy didn't literally mean it, but because he was just mad and he was letting off steam, I guess. Um, Still, it's a stupid thing because you know how sensitive the internet is and how people are going to react. So, unsurprisingly, the game was pulled off of Steam. Um, he left his company. Um, let's say, where is it? Blah, 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 blah. Also, the tweet that he said that was really depressing, where he said he was done. Where was it? Um, hmm.
I think I think it said in because I saw the tweet too, and I think it said something in the regards of like I'm done making games. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, yeah, he's indeed done with games in general, and like it sucked for all that mattered. Here is actually his response. So, I'm sorry that my statements made Valve and or Gabe uncomfortable and upset. Rightfully so. My temper and tendency to use Twitter to vent has been a consistent problem since I entered the games industry, and I just can't do it. I don't have the willpower necessary to be the face of a company. If I do continue to work in games, it'll be as an anonymous one of thousand, as some shitty corporation, not the most public figure of a single-digit-sized team. So he
Oh,
left, and basically, this tweet is also somewhere, but I can't find it right now. But basically, Steam said, "Listen, uh, we pulled your game off Steam, and we never want to have anything to do with your company again because you threatened to kill one of our employees." And so yeah, that's some fucked up shit. And I don't know, it's kind of funny to me as well. Like it's so sad, but I don't know. Like he kind of had it coming to him to like that he did something so stupid, you know. And not only that, he actually like I feel kind of like for him I don't feel sorry at all, but I kind of feel sorry for his coworkers that had nothing to do with this, and that are just now they're fucked. Like they made this game, they sweat, blood, and tears went into that, and it got pulled out of Steam, which is just that's where you want to be as a PC developer. And it reminded me of last year. There was this game called what was it called? Day One Gary's Incident. I don't know if you heard of this scandal. It was huge back in the day.
yeah, I heard of something.
Yeah, so there's this famous YouTuber called Total Biscuit, and he doesn't really do reviews, but he does first impressions of games, and he did a first impression of this game called I want to say Gary's Mod every time, but it's not. It's Gary's Incident, and he completely bashed the game, and the developer of the game actually flagged the video uh, and copyright striked him so that the video would pull off, even though they gave Total Biscuit a free review copy of the game, but they just pulled it off, or they claimed a copyright strike because the feedback was negative, and they would actually go on the Steam page and delete negative comments, and basically Total Biscuit just made a video explaining this, and they got shit on by everybody. And again, I do not feel sorry for that one guy that did it because it was the work of one guy, the head of that company that made the claim. But everybody else in that company, was the victim of the actions of that one guy, and that's just shitty. I mean, if you're the head of a company, that just shows that you really cannot handle it. And I don't know. It's a very juicy scandal, and it's kind of ironic that we have one of those scandals again now. And yeah, I don't know. So that studio code Avarice or whatever they're called, I don't know. Rest in peace, I guess. All right, so I guess that's kind of about it. I mean, not a whole lot of news. I don't think. Do you still want to say something about the whole matter with the paranormal or fuck me, paranormal, not paranormal activity, paranautical activity?
Yeah, I mean, just don't use Twitter for venting. I mean, or if you're gonna vent, just watch what you say. I mean, Steam's PR is pretty good. I don't know. Sometimes it take a while to get back because if they're backlogged, but Steam's PR has been pretty good. So I don't know why instead of sitting down to work it out, he wanted to flame the shit out of on Twitter, so
Yeah.
I guess it's his own fault.
He, of course, he emailed them. He emailed Steam trying to resolve it, saying, listen, I didn't mean it. It was stupid of me. But, Steam said, no.
Nope.
Gaben said no. Basically, yeah. The god himself had spoken, and he sentenced you to death.
Oh no, I meant before he vented on Twitter. He should have sat down and talked to Steam's PR.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Definitely. I mean, yeah, it was just a mistake, and I guess if indeed, like, he explained it in a normal manner, they might have resolved it and actually given him maybe extra time on the front page or something like that. Because it was maybe indeed their mistake. But I would guess that they would treat them fair when they actually see that they actually made a mistake themselves. But yeah, no, that's about it. So yeah, that's a tip for all you listeners. I mean, Twitter, the internet can really turn on you if you're not careful. But yeah, no, that's about it. So next week, let's see, next week it is there. So next week, Call of Duty comes out. You don't like that, right?
No, I just got bored of it.
Just got bored of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually want to talk a little bit more about just the Call of Duty franchise in general in next podcast, just about, kind of where you stopped, what you thought of the older games, where you thought that the franchise went wrong. But we'll save that for next week, as I'm actually going to buy the new one. I mean, listen, like, Call of Duty Ghost was just a pile of shite. But I will talk more about that next week to explain my matters. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. And we will see you guys next week.